Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Garrett. He scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania.
Oh, welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 46 for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. If you're hoping for a podcast featuring a guide to indoor vertical farming, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is CC Hockley, AHL editor of Full Press Hockey, and
I'm Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you all for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the teams for the AHL in the upcoming 21-22 season. We both watch a lot of AHL games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break that down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're newer to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms, like the point shares model, or the newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today looking up what people wore to the Met Gala. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time talking hockey with us?
I mean, Billie Eilish looking like old school Hollywood, giving off some Marilyn Monroe vibes. Nope. Come on. Nope. Sean says nope. I only know because it came across my Twitter feed. I did not actively look for it. Just saying. All right. Well, hey, it is time to start prepping. I mean, we've been prepping for the 2021-22 season, but like we did last year, first go around, this is our second go around of the preseason previews, or season previews rather, of now 31 teams. We only did 28 last year because Springfield, Charlotte, and Milwaukee. Thank you. Had a brain fart there. Yeah, those 3 didn't play last year, but we're covering 31 now. So without further ado, let's jump in. Today, we're going to be previewing the first 4 teams: Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Lehigh Valley Phantoms, the Hershey Bears, and the team that didn't play last year, one of 3, the Charlotte Checkers, in that order. So let's get right to it, and we're going to jump into the Penguins stats capsule. So, like I said, Wilkes-Barre Scranton head coach Jordi Forrester, second season, not Mike Vellucci, if you watched the gag reel from last year. 2020-2021 record was 13-4-2. That was good for 5th out of 7 in the North. By the way, their division this year is the Atlantic, just so we all can shift our brains back to what's normal once again. Affiliations for 2021, of course, Pittsburgh in the NHL and Wheeling in the ECHL. It's been that way for about 100 years up there in the Northeast. So 76 games scheduled. Forgive my dyslexia there. Let's talk additions and subtractions real quick. All right, additions: goaltender Louis Domingue, Samuel Houdet, Shaw Boomhauer. I'll tell you what, Jamie Devane, Chris Beagris, Christopher Mercier Ortiz, forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, Mitch Ranke, Taylor Fedun over from Texas, Dominic Simon, Philip Lindbergh, Michael Shapoo, Philip Hollander, Matt Bartkowski over from the Iowa Wild, and Valtteri Puustinen. I think I did okay.
Solid B.
Solid B. Thank you, Shawnee. Subtractions: Emil Larmy, Josh Curry, Billy Sweezy, Chase Berger, John Lazat, Nick Schilke, Max Lagase, Frederick Gadreau, Zach Trotman, Sam Militek, and Kevin. How do you pronounce that last name again, Sean?
Somehow they get Churchman out of that.
Kevin Churchman. There's 2 Z's in there and a C.
And no H's.
And no H's. But
that's how I've heard it pronounced. So that's what we're going with.
Hey, it's like Josef Kozanash out now in Tucson. But I digress. Let's talk forwards real quick. Well, let's talk forwards. It might not be real quick, but let's do it. It's hard to say at this point who's going to make the bottom of the Pittsburgh lineup and who's going to start in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I'm sure the taxi squad, scrambled all of our brains enough to where, that's problematic too. But hey, we're going to do our best guess. We're going to take our best guesses rather and try to cast a wide net of forwards to discuss. Regardless, it should be a much improved group over last season. Again, without that blasted taxi squad, should see a lot more talent on the AHL ice for sure. First off, let's talk Drew O'Connor. He looked the part of a pro-ready forward last season. Not the most exciting forward to watch, as his skill set is not very sexy, but he is a solid 200-foot player. He's got excellent work ethic and can finish around the net. His playmaking took a positive step last year in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, but I want to see him maintain that more as the pace of the AHL rises in a full season with a more varied schedule. You're not just playing the same 3 or 4 teams and rotating and repeating. Skating-wise, he isn't slow, but his lack of a top gear forces him to dump and chase often instead of putting defenders on their heels. Should be a solid do-it-all forward in the top 6 of the Baby Pens this season. So, second forward, let's talk Anthony Angelo. Good skater for his size, has some burst, but he doesn't have top-end speed. Has a good but not great offensive skill set that's powered more by his hockey IQ than his puck skills. Still takes too many penalties for my liking. Defensively, he's involved, but he does chase pucks from time to time and looks to cheat a little bit out of the zone a little too often for my liking. Still a useful second liner with upside at the net. Upside at the net front on the power play. So Michael Shapoo, I said Chaput earlier, but the T is silent, so forgive me for that. Shapoo can be an effective middle 6 forward when he finds good chemistry with his line mates. He's at his best in the high danger areas in the offensive zone, finding soft ice and protecting the puck well with his body in tight to finish plays. He doesn't possess great skating speed. His puck skills are more in tight and along the wall than they are flashy moves one-on-one in the neutral zone. Again, another player that doesn't have a sexy skill set overall, but defensively he's capable, and I wouldn't call him defensively minded per se. He is an okay penalty killer though, and that's something to be said on special teams for sure. All right, it's time for John Gruden. I'm not talking about Las Vegas' John Gruden either. That's my poor Gruden impression. Forgive me there. Tried that last year as well, but hope it'll get better. Gruden's got excellent work ethic paired with a good hockey IQ. He lacks the offensive toolkit to really be a consistent scorer. His skating speed is also below average, but he's useful as a middle of the lineup guy in the AHL. If he's relied on for scoring too much, though, I wouldn't have high hopes. Jordi Bellavree possesses a lot of skill you want in a player. He's a strong skater with an NHL caliber shot. Excellent work ethic. He kind of struggles to pull it all together, though, to find that consistent production despite all of that. Man, if he could, he would obviously be a top liner, a top 6 forward at the AHL level. Samuel Poulin, you'll notice him immediately when he has the puck. Has good but not great offensive skills. Can make defenders look bad one-on-one as well as crash the net. His shot isn't elite, but he can beat goalies cleanly from a distance. His skating speed is concerning, and he hasn't shown the processing speed to be able to make it up so far. Still should be a useful piece for the Baby Pens this year in their top 6, though. Radim Zahorna. There we go. That one's a little bit easier. He's probably going to get time with both Wilkes-Barre Scranton and the Pittsburgh Penguins this season. He could carve out a bottom line role in Pittsburgh and stick with it, but we're going to talk about with him just in case, because there's a lot of bubble guys that on those 2-way deals that could bounce up and down. Zahorna, not a lot of guys his size possess his smooth hands in tight or his shot. He's physical, but not overly so. His biggest drawback is his skating, which is improving, but at a slow pace. He can be effective with the right line mates and assignments, but is never going to be someone who can take over games or be a consistent offensive threat. Nathan Lagare, similar player in terms of skill set to Pilon. Solid offensive toolbox with good playmaking vision and ability to beat defenders one-on-one. He does have a better shot than Pilon and more grit than Pilon, especially in tight. But more similarly to Pilon, he's not a good skater and he lacks the speed to push defenders to their heels in transition. And last but not least, we've got a question mark next to Philip Hollander because he's similar to both Lagare and Pilon in terms of a skill set. He's probably going to be one of those bubble guys between the NHL and the AHL. Not as big a body as either Lagare or Pilon. Skilled offensive toolbox, has good playmaking vision, NHL caliber shot. Can beat goalies from a distance cleanly. If there was one biggest problem, I have to say it would be his skating. If any of Pilon, Lagare, or Hollander are able to overcome their skating, I think it's Hollander. And it seems he processes the games a little faster than the previous two I mentioned. So that was the forwards. Sean, over to you for the defense.
Defensive group as a whole this year should be a good balance of capable puck movers with guys who are basically defense only, which should make a lot of the defensive pairings in Wilkes-Barre Scranton rather obvious. It's generally good principle to pair, the guys that want to walk with the puck with the guys who want to just stay glued to the goalposts. First guy we're going to talk about, another bubble guy. I was surprised that he kind of seemed to fall into the Wilkes-Barre Scranton category, but you see Ricola. I'm surprised to see him here, but I don't see a way for him in Pittsburgh without injuries above him. And even then, I don't know if he's the first call up on defense, as his contract is a larger cap hit and he's not waiver exempt. He could spend the entire season in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. He missed a bunch of time last year with an injury. I believe he was cleared to play in late February, but didn't crack the Pens lineup out of the taxi squad, which again kind of slots him in here. In terms of his game, offensively, he makes a good first pass, and that's about it. He's not a terribly dynamic puck mover, and he's an average skater at best. Defensively, he's not very good in transition, but excels in in-zone defense while not being overly physical. He's not someone who's going to muscle guys off the puck, but has a good stick, reads the play well in the defensive zone. At the AHL level, I think he's a good pair with an offensive-minded right shot like Mitch Reinke, who has great offensive vision. He's a capable power play quarterback, but probably best on power play too. He shoots a bit too often from distance from my liking, but that's something you're going to see from kind of the middle tier of defensemen in the AHL. Defensively, he's okay. Skating, especially his edge work and his ability to maintain gap control and transition, is a clear weakness. That definitely is probably what keeps Mitch Reinke consistently in the AHL, but I still think he's a useful contributor on a second pairing role with some power play time. One of the guys I'm big on is Cam Lee. He's a smart player combined with great skating, processes the game fast, and as unlike Mitch Reinke and you see Ricola, he is someone who I trust a lot in transition to carry the puck or to beat F1 with his feet. Defensively, he's capable. His biggest downside is that his shot is unthreatening, we'll say, which leaves his power play abilities lacking a useful, if not, critical tool. A lot of power play quarterbacking is not necessarily having velocity or accuracy, but knowing how to set your opponent up and to break down penalty killers and that structure. But given everything else, he's someone I'd like to see move to a top role in Wilkes-Barre Scranton this year because I think he would thrive. Chris Beagris comes over from Lehigh Valley, an unexciting defenseman who's reliable defensively. Offensively, he's not dynamic and has about league average playmaking vision and probably around average skating at best. Much like Ricola, he should be a good defensive-minded partner for a more puck-moving defenseman like P.O. Joseph, who's a good but not great skater, but whose time in Wilkes-Barre Scranton is probably limited. He's shown to be a capable defenseman in short stints in the NHL. He isn't dynamic offensively, and he won't be deking out defenders or making no-look passes, but he can move plays up the ice effectively. Defensively, his physicality and size set him apart, as well as his ability to kill plays in the neutral zone with his ability to skate forward and use his stick effectively. The last guy I did want to talk about here briefly is Christopher Marseille Ortiz. very under the radar, but I wanted to include him. He's a good but not great skater, but his biggest asset is his ability to move the puck in transition. It's what he excelled at in the QMJHL and is something that I think led him to be a little undervalued. He's solid in defending his own blue line and defending against rush chances. Offensively, I don't think a lot of what he did to be successful in juniors is going to translate to the professional game, but he could still be a useful defenseman and a penalty killing guy, especially that he does defend the neutral zone so well and is very good in transition. Those are skills that are sought after, but not always the big sexy things like hard shooting and great playmaking.
Well, last and not least, forwards, D-men, of course, goaltending. Going to talk about the goalies here. It's definitely a group with upsides, but there are a lot of unknowns here. Good outcomes are possible, but so are a lot of bad ones. And of course, we're going to talk about the new addition that I mentioned earlier, Louis Domingue. I don't expect Domingue to make the Penguins out of camp, the Pittsburgh Penguins. I expect he'll be the veteran netminder splitting time with Dorio. The Penguins will mark his 8th different team he started a game for between the AHL and NHL the last 4 seasons. He was with Calgary last year, or at Calgary Flames and the Stockton Heat of Calgary, I should say. So, it's been 2 seasons since he finished the season in one place. Hopefully he gets to spend the season in Wilkes-Barre Scranton just for the consistency. Now, his results are all over the map in that time, and I think the call-ups, the trades, and so on are a big part of that. You know, consistency is key, especially at the goaltending position. Regardless, he's shown at times to be a capable AHL starter and an NHL backup, but he's also shown at times to be a sub-900 goalie. So only Voodoo knows what the Pens will get out of him, but his range of outcomes includes a fair number of good ones. And moving on from Domingue to Dorio, Alex Dorio, finalist for the best goalie mask in our award show in 2021. But on the ice, he's still a big mystery as to what he becomes. He's only 22 years old. He's got 12 AHL starts under his belt over the last 2 seasons. Unfortunately, his ECHL numbers with Wheeling are also below average. Had some sharp games at times last season, but often left out to dry by that wonderful WBS Pens defense. Overall, he reads the play pretty well. He's got good technical structure. You know, when the play breaks down in front of him, he lacks the explosive athleticism or the scramble ability to make those key saves. That may improve, you know, with experience at the pro level, but he's not someone I expect to make leaps forward this season and should be a firm backup in the AHL at this point. Last but not least, Tommy Napier. He only made 3 starts last season, but wow, did 2 of those 3 not go well. Backtrack a little bit. He had a good, solid college career, but while his tape last season was very limited, it was really hard to find positives. He struggled mightily to adjust to the speed of the pro game and even make reads. The defense in front of him, again, didn't do him any favors, but you know, still a lot to be concerned about. If Napier gets significant time in nets this season, I'd be very concerned about how it unfolds. Don't be surprised if you see him down with the Wheeling Nailers for a good portion of this year.
So we talked about all the skaters that you should be concerned about this year or who we think could make a play to be a factor in Wilkes-Barre. So let's talk about outcomes. We're going to do best case, worst case, and most likely case. And that'll be a theme through all of our teams that we cover the entire preseason. Best case scenario is Pittsburgh stays relatively healthy and finds room for guys like Zahorna, Dominic Simone, and Ricola in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Louis Domingue isn't needed to spell Jari often and stays for most of the season. They finish with 82 points and a 53.95% points percentage. That's good enough for 6th in the division and the last playoff spot in the completely made-up play-in round of this season. Cece, talk to me about worst case.
All right, worst case scenario, call-ups drag away guys like Simone, Ricola, and Domingue. The rookies don't adjust quickly, and the season starts rough. Dorio does his best, but doesn't have enough. There's enough talent here to keep the wheels on, but just barely. They finish with 74 points and a 48.68 points percentage, just missing a spot in the playoffs by about 4 points. That takes quite an effort with the expanded playoff format the AHL has going on this season. What's the most likely case, Sean?
There's enough here that even I expect the glutton of even though I expect a glutton of Pittsburgh Penguins injuries, I don't think Domingue gets and I don't think Domingue gets comfortable in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I don't have a lot of faith in the goalies above him in Pittsburgh to not get them yanked once in a while. I think they can squeeze into that 6th seed. The model currently projects them based on point shares for 79.61 points, but I'll take the slight over on that and say, I'll take the slight under on that and say 78, which is still good for a 6th place finish by points percentage in the division. So I think they sneak into that last spot. Unfortunately for them, they have a very tough schedule and they play in one of the most competitive divisions in the AHL this year. So that alone will not do them any favors. So I don't want people who are listening to this to think, oh, he's like thinking we're going to be 6th in the division, so we're bad. They're actually, I think, pretty decent, but it's a very tough schedule that's mostly division heavy in a very good division.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Pacific out in the Western Conference. Super competitive. If you're an average team, that could be your detriment, like it is for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. And to wrap it all up, from my opinion, I think Wilkes-Barre Scranton's going to miss Max Lagare. Just saying. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we're going to take a break here, and after the break, we'll get to Lehigh Valley, Hershey, and Charlotte season previews. If you're just here for Wilkes-Barre Scranton season preview, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, at The Calder Farmstead, and on Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. To enter, go to our Linktree page, linktree.com/Calder Farmstead, and click on the instructions for how to enter. That'll explain everything you could ever want to know, and a couple of clicks could get you a free AHL team package for the 21-22 season, courtesy of the Calder Farmstead. We're heading to break. Hold on, we'll be right back talking Lehigh Valley Phantoms hockey.
Alrighty, 1 team down, 3 to go in our first season preview episode of the 2021-22 AHL regular season. Time to talk Lehigh Valley, of course. We talked Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Why not jump over to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms? Ian LaPerriere, first year as head coach for Lehigh Valley. Their 2021 record was 18-7-4-2. That was good for 2nd out of 7 teams in the North Division this year. And of course, they're bouncing over, just like Wilkes-Barre Scranton, from the North Division last season to the Atlantic. Affiliations for 2021, Philadelphia Flyers, of course, and the Reading Royals. That ECHL affiliation continues as well. Game scheduled 76. Let's talk additions real quick. Samuel Ersson, a new goaltender that they got. Adam Clendening coming over from the Cleveland Monsters. Cooper Zek, Nick Seeler, and here's the big one, Shawnee. Gary Mayhew. Whew. He's going to bring some firepower to Lehigh Valley, no doubt. Subtractions, you got David Case, Tanner McMaster, Derek Puyol. He's heading over to Anderson. Chris Beagris, like we talked about earlier, he's going over to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Alex Lyon. I'm saying it with a little bit of a French accent there. He has departed. That's a tough loss for them as well. And Pascal Laberge. So not a whole lot of additions and subtractions in the grand scheme of things this offseason for Lehigh Valley. Sean, let's talk about the forwards core. How do they look for the Phantoms this year?
Forward depth should be the strength of this team, as they have the ability to just roll line after line of dangerous guys who can get pucks in the net. And that begins and ends with Jerry Mayhew. I mean, he's a do-it-all forward who carried Iowa at times last year. He has an absolute wicked shot, good playmaking vision, showed a much improved defensive game last year, and was a pretty good asset for them on the penalty kill. He has good speed for the AHL, but his skating is wanting for an otherwise NHL caliber player. But Jerry Mayhew, you could see the difference in the locker room in Iowa when he came down from Minnesota's taxi squad last season. Their whole season turned around, and I think a lot of it had to do with his presence, not just in the locker room, but on the ice.
Oh, absolutely.
Another big part of Lehigh Valley this year is going to be Wade Allison. I thought he had a pretty good rookie campaign and answered a lot of questions about whether his style would transfer to the pro game. I still think he needs to gain more awareness of the ice as a whole, as he did struggle to find he didn't struggle to find teammates per se, but he wasn't exactly setting guys up for tap-ins. There were a couple of instances in which I thought he would have been better off trying to pass or pull up and make a better play that he didn't. He definitely has an NHL shot and can protect the puck well and tight. And you pair that with someone who has above average skating and good physicality, and he could really break out this year if he can put more of his game together at that pro level. I like him as a dangerous top 6 forward who should get some looks in Philly again this season. Next up, we got to talk about Tanner Leshinski. Another solid rookie campaign for the Phantoms, but made much less noise in the AHL than Allison did last season. He's still frustrating in the sense that he very much has a pass-first mentality, despite what I think is he's a better shooter than a passer. He's not a bad skater, but he lacks the ability to make plays in stride and thus doesn't have a lot of high-end elements to his offensive game. He can't shoot in stride, doesn't have a lot of deception. Defensively, I thought he made steps forward last season, but is still not going to be a great defensive player at any point in my mind. I think he's going to be a good middle 6 forward for the Phantoms this year, and if he can add some layers to his offensive game, maybe start looking off goaltenders to fake the pass and then just rip it bar down, I think he could surprise people. Another guy who had another good season last year for Lehigh Valley was Ryan Fitzgerald. I do think he overachieved a little bit. I think he's a decent shooter, but last year he actually fired pucks at a much better pace last year. However, he was on pace to score 32 goals last season over a full 76. His career pace is 18. That was powered by a shooting percentage that is 54% higher than his career average. That's not likely to be repeatable. I'd like to see him try and match his shot volume from last season, but I do expect his goal totals to return to a pace closer to his career average than the 18.5% he shot last season. I still think he can pull 20, but 32 is probably past him. Regardless, he's a fluid skater with decent speed and a good hockey IQ. Defensively, he is very aggressive and is prone to chasing pucks or trying to jump in and make a play, which is great when it goes well. When it doesn't, he leaves his defensive assignment wide ass open. Overall, I like Fitzgerald, and I think he slots in well as a middle 6 contributor, but I'd be curious to see if some top line and top power play unit looks wouldn't see a production boost from him. I think the tools are there, but he just hasn't shown the consistency. One big question mark for this team is Zayd Wisdom, best name in hockey. If Wisdom recovers from off-season surgery in time to play games, I'm confident they'll be in Lehigh Valley and not Philly. His crash and bang style of play was always going to endear him to fans, and he has a motor that runs hot despite having rather average offensive skills. But he's able to find soft ice in dangerous areas and win battles down low for rebounds. His skating lacks burst, which is concerning given his size, but with his work ethic, he can overcome that and be an effective player. It all depends, though, can he recover in time to still have an impactful part of this Phantom season. One person we know will have an impact no matter what is Cal O'Reilly. His playmaking at the AHL Vision is legendary and undisputed. Also, did you know his brother is Ryan O'Reilly?
Really?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
His age is definitely starting to become a factor in his skating speed and compete level, but he's still a valuable asset and can run a power play. And it's crazy to think of him trying to find guys like Jerry Mayhew in space on the power play. That could just be nasty. Max Willman had times last season where he had games that he took over, and he also had games where he was barely noticeable. He possesses a lot of good tools that I like. Very good skating, great edge work, shows flashes of good playmaking vision and hockey IQ. But he struggled a lot with consistency last year. But all the tools, all the raw abilities you would want to see in a player that could push for the NHL are there with Max Willman. It's just about finding them consistently and putting them to good use. Another big question is Tyson Forrester. He also had some injury troubles last year, and if memory serves me correctly, he may not be fully recovered in time to start the season, but I may be wrong about that. Cece, look that up while I stall. Tyson Forrester reminds me a lot of Conor Mcmichael and Hershey. He has a dangerous shot, pretty decent playmaking vision, especially when afforded time and space, like on the power play. Similar to McMichael, his strength is not skating, but I think it holds Forrester back, whereas McMichael's is nearly needing improvement if he wants to become a more impactful player at the NHL level. Forrester can play through contact, but he's not terribly physical, and I was very much not a fan of his defensive play last year in limited AHL time. He has the toolkit on offense that absolutely will jump off the page, and I like his game in places, but it needs to improve if he's going to fulfill that first-round draft pick potential.
I'm trying to find his status here. you did admirably to stall, but
I will continue stalling. That's all right. I got one more guy to talk about, and that's Noah Cates. One of the not newer Flyers prospects, but someone that will be new to Lehigh Valley. Good defensive forward, physical, can win battles along the boards or in front of the net. Very good hockey IQ. Skating speed and offensive tools, not quite up to speed, though. And I think he's likely to be a third liner to begin the season and play penalty kill. But I think once he gets comfortable, gets up to speed, has a little bit of time to develop and season in the AHL, I think he can eventually be a good top six contributor, if not this season for the Phantoms, in future seasons.
Sorry, I'm still looking.
Still looking?
Yeah, I mean, it just says that, yeah, he got injured with an upper body injury back in May, and it says he could return to the AHL this season as soon as 2 weeks ago from Broad Street Buzz. Let's see here. One of the things it's nothing, of course, nothing concrete. Just says he may have a chance to do so again if he recovers from injury. So that's a solid. Go ahead.
Solid question.
Solid, absolutely, maybe for sure.
Yeah. All right, Cece, let's talk defense here. How do you see the defensive core shaking out for the Phantoms? And give me some guys who stand out to you.
Well, just like it was with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, depending on how the Flyers roster shakes out, this could be a very strong group powered by good prospects and anchored by useful veterans. The parent club's roster shaking out, not necessarily the same caliber, because I think, Lehigh Valley's defensive core is going to be a lot better than Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So let me jump into it. Adam Clendening, again, joining from the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, the Cleveland Monsters, has surprisingly polished puck skills, uses his frame well to protect the puck, possesses above average NHL caliber shot velocity, but he's a little too trigger happy, and he often fires those low percentage pucks from a distance. He's got decent playmaking vision and occasionally makes moves of his offensive zone blue line to attack the slot as an option. Solid power play quarterback, knows how to break down the PK with quick puck movement. However, his skating is very poor and holds him back as he lacks adequate foot speed, and his stride is awkward and inefficient. His edge work doesn't do him any favors either. But yeah, both have made him a poor defender in transition, but hey, defensively, he's physical to a fault. He will often take unnecessary penalties because of it. Yeah, that's a double-edged sword there for sure. Cam York, very promising rookie season from an exciting prospect. Not terribly flashy, but makes small, subtle plays that keep his team out of trouble. He can make defenders look bad enough with his stick handling and puck control paired with good edge work. Hockey IQ and playmaking vision are his biggest assets. His defensive game is a work in progress, but it's not a liability by any means, so there's that. Igor Zamula, good hockey IQ and defends reasonably well despite not being a good skater. Inconsistent last season, he'd have a huge weekend and then just a stretch of B- play. He moves the puck well, got better as the season wore on. Wouldn't be shocked to see a leap from him in terms of production this season. Don't be surprised. Last but not least, Mason Willman moves the puck out of his own end well, but he's good but not a great skater. Solid defensively in his own, can defend the blue line well. Offensively, he lacks creativity and his shot's nothing to write home about, but again, with a defenseman, you don't necessarily need that. So as long as you got a balanced core, there you have it.
Last but not least here, we're going to talk about goalies, and this is the spot where I feel like we're setting us up to be radioed like we were last year, where we got scooped last year, where we're like, yeah, Lehigh Valley really needs to add like a good veteran or two to this roster to really feel like they can compete. And then hours after we put the episode out, that's exactly what they did. Mm-hmm. And looking at this goalie room, very big question mark here is Sandstrom had solid starts mixed with bad ones, but what's behind it doesn't look promising, and they look like they could use a veteran presence out there after Alex Lyon, decided to go to greener pastures.
Mm-hmm.
Felix Sandstrom was the winner of our goalie mask of the year in 2021. On the ice, he played only 11 games last season and only has 13 AHL starts. His biggest issue in previous seasons was consistency. And after some initial rough outings, he seemed to calm down and find that consistency a little bit. But 11 games does not a sample size make, though. And I still think he has the raw tools to be successful, but he's got to wield them well game after game before I'm willing to put a lot of faith in him. Behind him.
So you're saying a guy that signed in Europe and then a couple days later actually reneged on that and signed a contract with Philly, re-upping a contract. You saying that guy has consistency issues? Is that what you're saying? I couldn't help myself. Continue.
No, that's very fair. Behind him is, there are dudes. Kirill Ustimenko spent 2021 in Belarus, where he only got into 2 games. Only has 5 AHL starts, which went okay-ish. He has the athletic tools to be a quality AHL starter. His puck tracking ability, read the play, lagged behind the last time I saw him in the AHL, though, which again was not last season. He's a bit of a mystery in terms of what you're going to get this year, and a lot of voodoo can happen, but I wouldn't be expecting him to stand on his head for the Phantoms this year. Same with Samuel Ersson. He feels a lot like the opposite of Ustimenko in the sense that he reads the play really well, anticipates threats, sees threats before they happen. But he lacks the high-end athleticism, though, to make those big explosive saves. And he doesn't have a massive frame to make up for the fact that he can't quite get post-to-post as quickly as some of the other goalies. So very much kind of the opposite of how Ustimenko plays. But again, at the AHL level, no idea. He could be anybody. I'm not sure if he makes his way to the AHL this season, and I could see him struggling as a rookie with the speed and different stylings of a North American game that he's not that familiar with, especially without having the explosiveness to rely on while he plays mental catch-up. So if it's between Ustimenko and Ersson, I like Ustimenko better. But we're wish-casting goaltending value here at this point.
And
TC, talk to me about outcomes.
Oh, yeah. Now that we're done with all 3 of the groups there, it's time to talk outcomes, like you said, Shawnee. So best case scenario, goaltending is voodoo, and Sandstrom and his merry band of misfits voodoo their way to a league average goaltending tandem. The rest of the team is still deep and skilled. They finish with 91 points and a 59.87% points percentage. That's good for 3rd in the division, but 7th in the AHL. Shawnee, worst case scenario.
Yeah, that 3rd in the division, but 7th in the league really shows you this is going to be a tough out this year in this division. So worst case, I still think is a very fun season. Worst case here is the goaltending becomes a disaster, and the Phantoms have to score 4 or 5 goals repeatedly to win. Thankfully, they have a fair amount of firepower to make that not ridiculous, even if some guys spend some time in Philly or on the IR. Worst case scenario, they finish with 79 points and a 51.97 points percentage and comfortably take that 6th place finish in the division, sliding into that last playoff spot.
That's going to take some getting used to. 6th place in your division and you make the postseason. Anyway, moving on. All right, most likely case. The model has the Phantoms projected to finish with 87.53 points and a 57.58% points percentage. That's a comfortable 3rd in the division, but still 11th in the league. So, wait, didn't it say, let's see, good for 3rd in the division in the best case scenario as well?
Yep, but 3rd in the division with more better points percentage.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So most likely case, they're still 3rd in the division, but 11th in the league. I misread that. Forgive me, Sean. I was like, I don't understand. Given their lack of veteran presence in net at this point, as we've covered, I'm going to take the under and say 85 points for a 55.92% and still a 3rd place finish. They're just going to finish 3rd. That's just how it's going to shake out, no matter what.
Yep. So we're going to take a break here. After the break, we're going to get to Hershey and Charlotte season previews. If you're just here for the Phantom season preview, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 AHL TV team packages. To enter, go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. It's also scrolling below here on YouTube and almost assuredly linked somewhere where you clicked on this link to get to this. Click on the links on our Linktree page on the instructions for how to enter, and you, with just a few quick clicks, may win an AHL team package for your AHL TV this season. We'll be right back talking Hershey Bears hockey. Stay tuned.
We are halfway done through our first season preview episode. 2 Atlantic teams down, 2 Atlantic teams to go. Next up, the regular season champion Hershey Bears, 2020-21 regular season champion Hershey Bears. Scott Allen ascending to bench boss this year. This is going to be his first season as head coach of the Bears. 2020-21 record, like I said, regular season best, 24-7-2-0. Good for first in the North, good for first in the AHL. 2021-22 division, of course, is the Atlantic, like I mentioned. Again, you got to kind of twist the wheels in your brain to get back to normal mode divisionally wise. Affiliations for 2021-22. Capitals, of course, Washington Capitals in the NHL, and South Carolina Stingrays in the ECHL. So many affiliations change, but this one seems to remain the same, and it has for a while. Game scheduled, 76. Let's talk additions and subtractions. Ryan Bednard coming in a goaltender from Greenville, had a pretty solid ECHL season last year. Jordan Subban, Yannick Turcotte, Cody Franson jumping over from Rockford, Mike Vecchione from the Colorado Eagles, Dylan McElrath, Matt Irwin, Bobby Nardella. He played with Hershey in 1920 and then jumped on over to the SHL in Sweden last year, coming back to the Bears this season. Subtraction, a couple of big names. Philippe Applesauce Maillet, the assist man himself. Daniel Carr, he jumped overseas this offseason, so he's not going to be playing with Hershey this year. And last, Damian Riot. So 3 forwards not coming back to the Hershey Bears, but hey, it could have been a lot worse. They re-signed a lot of players, and we're going to get into that right now, talking about their forward core. So let's jump into it. A group that has few truly dynamic players at the AHL level. You got, of course, Pinot, Pilon, Sgarboza, mixed in with a lot of guys who have skills, but whose production is going to come down to who they share the ice with. I'm talking about Clark, Snively, Leeson, etc. First and foremost, we're going to talk about one of the few players that abides with a hashtag free Brian Pinot. Brian Pinot, will this be the season that Brian Pinot is freed? We're still gonna trend hashtag free Brian Pinot and get him on that power play unit. He's a solid 200-foot player, good defensive instincts, NHL shot, good playmaking vision. Skating is average, won't burn any defenders, but he looked to take a leap forward in limited minutes last season, continues to get passed over for top line minutes, and consistent power play time. It wouldn't shock me to see him in Washington, but for now, he likely starts the season in Hershey. Speaking of Sgarboza, Mike Sgarboza, he has become more pass first over the last few seasons. Is perhaps not the best thing, as he's got a good shot, but shot at a much lower clip last season than his previous 2. He's good, but not a great skater. His big asset in transition is he can transport the puck into the offensive zone. Defensively, he pays lip service to defense, but more than a few times, a few more strides of effort or better place stick would have paid off immensely. Overall, he's capable of being a top-line AHL forward, and he can carry a line at his level. Garrett Pilon. This is one of Shawnee's guys to watch, as he mentioned in our interview with Emily Engel Natsky, which was last episode. If you haven't checked it out, go do that. Pilon's a decent physical forechecker with above average skating. Very good playmaking vision, especially as the bumper on the top power play unit. His puck skills are above average, although he's not gonna deke by any AHL defenseman one-on-one. Defensively, he's active and capable, but I wouldn't categorize him as a defensive-minded forward. Still, he's got dynamic abilities and can carry an AHL line when necessary. It's a good thing to have. Next up, Conor Mcmichael. I'm a lot higher on him than Sean. He is an absolute weapon in the offensive zone. Good playmaking vision and puck skills. Deadly shot. Maybe the best sniper in the AHL, if I can say that. He's Well, I mean, his skating is merely okay. I go from best sniper in the AHL to merely okay skating. Defensively, he gets the job done, but will likely not be counted on in the final minutes of games with a 1-goal lead or on the penalty kill. All right. You knew we were going to talk about him. The vet, Matt Moulson, coming back for another season with Hershey. His game is based a lot on his hockey IQ, his ability to read the play and anticipate where to be. Of course, he's lost a step in skating speed and isn't willing to throw his body around. He's still physical, though. I mean, he's getting into his upper 30s. So you can't,
I'm sorry. What age did you say he was? I think he's 43 now.
No, he's not that old.
All right, keep reading. I will look this up. I'm pretty sure.
I thought he was in his late 30s. If he's in his early 40s, oh, Lord, we're getting old. So Moulson's hockey IQ paired with his solid puck control, good shot from in close, are what carries his game into his 15th professional season.
He's 37.
Yep, upper 30s.
Sorry, Matt Moulson.
I thought he was 43. Sean.
I thought he was so much older. I don't know who I'm thinking of.
Timu Solane? I don't know. He's 50 almost, or maybe he already is. Anyway, Moulson, to wrap him up, I don't think he's going to see a lot of top line minutes, but he should still be relied on as a strong second liner and the net front on the power play. And of course, you keep him around because he's got that leadership ability and that leadership quality about him. Joe Snively, talk about him. Decent skater, but needs to be better than decent to really compensate for his size if he's going to really break through his current role, especially as his puck control and stick handling are just average-ish at best. He has a good shot for the AHL and can beat AHL goalies from mid-range, and he's not afraid to be physical to battle along the boards. Defensively, were you going to say something, Sean?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Just taking a breath there. Sorry. Defensively, he's not a liability nor strength. Can be a useful middle six scorer if he can find chemistry with line mates who can carry the puck through the neutral zone and set him up. It's time for some AJF, the man with the flow of the year, as we awarded him last year. Oh, Axel Jonsson Fjallby. A quality skater with very good straight line speed, good playmaking vision, and he's dangerous off the rush, period. Struggled to find line chemistry, and I thought wasn't well utilized in Hershey's scheme last year, which had him do more dump and chase than carry the puck in, which is kind of AJF's primary skill. He should get more power play time, especially on breakouts where his skating abilities can be maximized. And that's it for AJF. Moving on, Cody Clark. Frustrating usage last year as one of the few right-handers on the team who can rip pucks. He was frequently overlooked on that first power play unit in favor of an all lefty top unit that left Sean and I scratching our heads. I mean, even though they finished at the top of the league last season, there was a few. Again, it was a weird season, limited pool of teams that you're facing. Yeah, a lot of questionable decisions that Hershey made, and that was one of them. An average skater, back to Clark, who won't put defensemen on their heels but can keep up with an up-tempo pace of play. Puck skills and playmaking vision are both average, but occasionally he'll show flashes of brilliance. He's someone who could see a more productive year and crack the top six more often if he can get better line mates who can set him up with pucks. If you're a scorer, you always need that good playmaker to set you up. Brett Leeson. He finished the season strong with points in 4 of his last 6 games. In our interview with Bears video coach Emily Ingelnatsky, once again, he was her sleeper pick this season for the Bears. So keep an eye on Leeson. He's got good hockey senses, has a solid offensive toolkit, competes hard, and is defensively responsible for the most part. Skating looked improved, but still in need of some work, even at the AHL level. Lastly, Alexi Protos had a good season in the limited role that he played. Good playmaking vision. He's got an AHL shot. His skating speed is limiting. Could see him get buried on the depth chart, which is unfortunate because I think he's got a lot of potential, but needs the ice time to settle in and grow. And if you've got certain voice-activated speakers in the house, I almost queued mine up by saying Protas's first name. So that could have been very bad. And that would have had to hit the editing floor. But thankfully, that did not happen. And we're moving on to the Hershey Bears defensive core.
Yep. The defensive core, potentially a good bit of NHL talent here, depending on who stays and who goes to Washington. However, the skating ability of the overall D-core does concern me some. And let's start with my sleeper pick from our interview, which was Alex Alexiev. Good two-way defenseman, NHL caliber shot, shows creativity and poise on the blue line, but inconsistently so. Skating for me is a big concern for him, as he's a bigger defenseman, but especially when it comes to defending his blue line in transition. However, he has a ton of offensive upside, and I think he could take a leap this year if given the playing time and a good defensive partner that complements him well. And I think that defensive partner that complements him well is Martin Ferivari, because he's almost the direct opposite of Alexiev in that he's a very good skater, defends his blue line well, and can kill plays in the neutral zone, what's known as surf skating, where you kind of skate on an arc and forward to cut a player off instead of instead of backwards. He lacks offensive creativity in the offensive zone, which leads him to just hurling low percentage shots in the net from distance. And as in following in form in being the opposite of Alexiev, he can't shoot. God help me if I see him take another shot from distance on the power play. He's been a staple of the Bears' second unit power play for years and has hurled pucks at the net and has 0 power play goals to show for it. Go ahead, Cece.
Just said eep. Eep.
Someone who can hurl pucks to the net with efficiency is Cody Franson, almost certain to run the Bears' first power play unit this season. Big, physical, still has NHL playmaking vision, and has NHL caliber shot velocity. However, as he is getting up there in age, his foot speed has definitely taken, the hit that comes with that. He compensates this well with his ability to process the game faster than others, but he's still vulnerable to being beat outside or misreading a play and being a little too aggressive and then getting caught. His end zone defense is good. However, his age is starting to show in transition and getting, beat a little bit to the outside by younger, faster players. However, he's still a valuable asset, and I still think he could be a good power play 1 quarterback and a number 2 or number 3 defenseman on an AHL team. Bobby Nardella, back from Sweden. Good puck mover, will jump in and join the rush, which I like a lot. A lot of good offensive skill. His skating is more average, which is a bigger problem than it is with some of the others, as he's literally my height and weight. Defensively, he's fine, but occasionally will get out muscled on dump-in retrievals because he doesn't have the speed to beat the forechecker and doesn't have the size to protect the puck. Last but not least, we have to talk about Dylan McIlrath, and I'll be honest here, I hated this signing. I don't get it. McIlrath is big, slow, doesn't move the puck well. He has a high-velocity shot, but utilizes it poorly and will just bomb it on net from distance. His version of defense is physical, which is fine, but he takes a lot of penalties that are just unnecessary. Because of his skating, he's a liability in transition and isn't able to defend the blue line well. And pair that with he takes way too many penalties, doesn't do a lot of other stuff well. I don't get it, but he's quote-unquote a leader. And as I've said many times on the show with other signings and other players, leadership is great. It's an essential component to every successful locker room. But in the AHL, you can easily find leaders who also make useful contributions on the ice. Matt Molson is a good example of them. Cody Franson is another. McIlrath might be an amazing leader in the locker room, but Hershey isn't hurting for those. They need defensemen who can keep guys like Jordi Bellavree or Wade Allison from just taking it wide and using their speed to generate scoring chances. And Dylan McIlrath is not that guy. And if you think that Ian Lapierre is going to find Dylan McIlrath on shifts with Wade Allison in the playoffs, you're wrong. Last but not least, let's talk about some goaltenders. Cece, how do they do the voodoo?
So well. Well, hey, a goalie group that looked hot on paper last season, but there are some limitations that should be cause for concern. Like I said in the interview with Emily Engelnatsky, I really hope Ryan Bednar gets a chance, gets 5-10 games with Hershey this season. Hopefully that doesn't happen because of injury, but let's talk about the top 2 goaltenders coming into Hershey this year. Of course, Zach Fucale. Fucale played 11 games last season. He has 116 career starts in the ECHL that are overall just average. He has 80 career starts in the AHL to mixed results. Yes, he looked good in most of those 11 starts last season. We've beaten this horse to death because Hershey didn't have a very diverse schedule last year, and to be quite honest, no one did. The Bears' schedule was significantly easier than others, though. Fucale's splits in games against Lehigh Valley versus games against Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Binghamton were alarming. Fucale has the athleticism required and reads the play in front of him well. He moves well, and according to video coach Emily Ingelnatsky, he's the Bears player he spends the most time reviewing video, of course, because goaltending is a lot of video, I'm sure. A lot of his past history indicates that last season numbers were unsustainable. And I think he'll be an average to above average AHL goalie this season. I was trying to combine ECHL and AHL apparently right there, but I'm not putting the cart ahead of the horse here. You got Fucale, you've got Phoenix Copley. And I know that Copley is beloved in Hershey, but we have to be honest here. He's been very average the last two seasons with the Bears. 1920, 0.905 save percentage, 2021, 0.896 save percentage. And those are not save percentages of a top AHL goalie. One does not simply have a mediocre save percentage and is in the AHL. It's not even a capable starter save percentage. Copley's 29. It's likely we've already seen his best self in net. Now, if Fucale can be the goalie his stat sheet showed last season, which I have a lot of reservations about, I think Copley can be a competent backup, but his days as a solid starter or 1B may be fading. So watch your butt. Got some other goaltenders nipping at your heels. Sean, we've covered the three groups. It's time for the outcomes. And sir, give us the best case scenario.
I mean, best case, the combo of Fucale and Copley turned out to be above average for an AHL goalie tandems. Guys like Alexiev, Leeson, Protos, who we thought could take a step forward, do. Brian Pino gets stapled to PP1. Best case scenario for the Bears here, they finish with 96 points or a 63.16 points percentage. First in the division and second overall in the AHL. I think that's attainable, but that is best case.
Sure. And with goaltending being voodoo, anything can happen. All right, let's talk worst case. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. This is still a very talented and deep team. But as with every team, there are holes. Their fourth line could be the worst in the league. Favari? Is that how you say it? Faravari. I don't say that name very much. Faravari. He's the only defenseman with good skating, and he could be the Caps' black ace or first call-up come the postseason, which is worrisome against, well, even in the regular season. Hell, it's worrisome. No matter if it's regular season, postseason, it's worrisome against teams who have a lot of speed. And I'm not saying the Bears implode and miss the playoffs or anything like that, but an 84-point finish with a 55.26% points percentage, third or fourth in the division, is not outside the range of outcomes here, despite the deep forward group that Hershey has. Shawnee, what's the most likely scenario?
So the model projects Hershey for 93.78 points and a 61.7 points percentage. While I'm high on a lot of their parts of their roster, seeing offseason signings like Yannick Turcotte and Dylan McElrath concern me, as they're not good hockey players anymore, or in Turcotte's case, never were. I still think this team rips through the regular season, but I'm taking the under on the model, and I'm going to say 90 points here. That still puts them right in the fight for the division title and a top 5 team in the AHL. I think even in in some slightly downer opinions that I might have of this team, they're still real good. Like, let's not mince words. They're still very good. I just don't think they are the clear-cut best team in the league.
Right. And I think that the fact that you take the magnifying glass to those teams that are really good and you point out, hey, they still could improve here. They could put Brian Pino on the first power play unit, for Christ's sake. And, you do that. And yeah, you're very critical of the teams that do really well. You don't just let them stand pat. You keep them honest. And that's what I like about you, Shawnee. One of the many things.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're going to take a break here. After the break, we will finally get to the Charlotte Checkers season preview. If you're just here for the Bears season preview, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from. And that way, when you subscribe, you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and on Twitter at Calder Farmstead because they limited us to how many characters we use, and the seemed like the least useful part. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 free AHL TV team packages. To enter and find the details of what you have to do for that, go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. It's scrolling down below here on our YouTube channel, and I'm sure wherever you found this audio version link, whether it be through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Reddit, that link is probably nearby. And click on that. Click on our link tree and go to the button that says "Instructions for AHL TV," and that will tell you everything you need to know to enter. It'll give you all the links you need. It'll be great. You may have a chance to win AHL TV, a team package free for a year. Thank you to us. We will be right back. We will talk Charlotte Checkers hockey next. Stay tuned.
Last but not least, for episode number 46, the first one of the 2021-22 AHL season previews here on the Calder Farmstead. Coming back after a year off, the Charlotte Checkers and head coach Jordi Bellavree, his first season with the Checkers coming in. And of course, 2021, their record is not applicable because they did not play. But 1920, 34, 22, 5-0. That was good for third place in the Atlantic Division. They are the only team this year talking about affiliations with 2 NHL clubs, as they are taking both the Florida Panthers and the incoming Seattle Kraken. So a dual affiliation NHL-wise, and sticking with the Greenville Swamp Rapids at the ECHL level, they are scheduled for 72 games this season. Additions, let's talk a little bit on the Florida side of things, and then we'll jump over to Seattle, because this team is going to look nothing like the team you saw on the ice in 1920. So it's going to be a little different. We're just going to cover additions. So hang tight. Evan Fitzpatrick, goaltender. Karsh Bachman at forward. Kevin Connaughton, defenseman. Noah Juleson played time in Syracuse last year, a few games. Lucas Carlson. Goaltender Christopher Gibson. Zach Dalpe coming in from the Cleveland Monsters. Samuel Montembeau. And Chase Prisky. Those are some of the highlights of the Florida Panthers additions that are going to be coming to Charlotte this season. Now, Seattle, they've got a bit of a hodgepodge of two-way contracts that you're going to be looking at. And one-way ones, too, of course, at the AHL level. But Alex True from San Jose Barracuda, Connor Carrick, Cole Lind, Cale Fleury, Carson Twarnitsky, goaltender Antoine Bibeau, played with the Wolves last season, Gustav Olofsson, and Dennis Cholowski. Did I say that right? Cholowski?
I think it's Cholowski. Yeah.
Cholowski. Yes, that sounds better. So, again, a lot of new faces on the Charlotte Checkers just based on the fact that they switched affiliations from Carolina and they had Florida. You had Seattle to the mix. This team is going to look drastically different than they did 2 years ago. So, Sean, with that said, let's dive into the forwards group and see how they are going to look for the new look Charlotte Checkers in 2021-22.
And a little bit of a disclaimer here for the Checkers group here is because they have a dual affiliation and we're not exactly sure who's going to end up in Seattle versus who's going to be sent to Charlotte, how that balance is going to work out. There is a fair amount of guesswork going on to this roster, so we tried to cast the widest net we possibly could. But let's start it off with the forward group here. A good balance of skating speed, playmaking talent, and guys who can finish up close. If this group can find chemistry, they could be murderers. Zach Dalpe at 31, it's good to see Dalpe still in pro hockey. He's a strong skater with good speed that can put defenders on their heels. He plays a very high-energy, intense game. His puck skills are average, but his shot is still very good for the AHL level. Defensively, well, he's improved over the years, but I would not call him good defensively. Coming over from, I believe, the Utica Comets last year under the Vancouver banner is Cole Lind, who's good at finding soft ice in the offensive zone, good puck skills and a decent shot. Defensively, he's merely okay, a fair amount of which seems to be effort-based. Skating speed is his main issue, but he possesses a good enough skill set to be an effective AHLer despite a limiting amount of skating speed. Alexander True was one of the very few solid contributors for the Barracuda last year amid a down season and a clown car roster for that team. He has good finishing ability and good puck skills in tight. His work ethic is impressive and he skates hard every shift. Despite that work ethic, his skating itself keeps him from putting defenders on their heels or playing with pace. He can be an effective top six guy in the AHL, but he's going to need someone else on his line to transport the puck into the offensive zone, as his skating really doesn't allow him to be effective in that skill. Henry Bowlby has some speed, but mostly through effort, as his technique is ugly. Defensively, he's shown to be useful. He has a good stick and good but not great awareness. Some limitations as a penalty killer because of his lateral skating and agility, but he's a solid forechecker. Offensively, his puck skills are average at best, as he struggles to control loose pucks or off-target passes. He's good at finding soft ice in dangerous areas, though, and he has some finishing ability in tights. He's not overly physical, but he certainly won't shy away from contact, especially when going to the net in the offensive zone. All in all, I think Henry Bowlby is a useful third-line player who can be good enough in spot duty on higher moments in the lineup as an injury fill-in. One of the big intriguing pieces this year is Grigory Denisenko. Fantastic skater, mostly with edge work as opposed to straight line speed, but has very good puck skills, often underutilizes teammates, and while he does have good playmaking vision, he will try and force a lot of one-on-ones instead of using space to make use of a teammate in a two-on-one situation. His shot is what separates him from the pack, though. It is a laser beam. Defensively, he works hard but lacks the hockey IQ on the defensive side to truly be a 200-foot player. I think this could be a big year for him to ball out, especially if he can find consistency and have a wider vision of his teammates and where to go with the puck on the ice. I think he has a lot of skill, but he's struggled to put it together in the past in a way that is truly wowing. And I think he could take a leap this year and really be someone who pushes the top of the lineup as well as getting time in Florida no, he's Florida property. So in Florida.
Correct.
Next, I want to talk about Sarah Noel. Inconsistently awesome is how I would describe him. Skates very well for his size, has great hands, can make defenders look bad, uses his frame well and tight, wins battles in the home plate area. Not a great playmaker, though, and gives a very inconsistent effort. His A game is NHL caliber, but he does not bring that A game every night to the rink, and his B- game is not very good. Next, I want to talk about Logan Hutsco. Very good skater, solid playmaking vision. The fact that he's on the smaller size doesn't limit him, although he won't be winning board battles very often. Although I suppose if he goes to Emily Angelnatsky's symposium on being undersized on the wall, he could learn some cool things. He is returning from a major injury that kept him to just 11 games last season. He has the skill set, but he hasn't put it all together yet. This is going to be a very important year for him developmentally, and I'm going to want to see him take a leap before I think the Panthers are going to give him any big looks in the Florida Sunrise area. But I think he has the raw tools to make that possible. Next, we're going to talk about Alexi Heponiemi. Very glad I only have to say that once. Will probably get time in both Florida and Charlotte this season. Not a great skater, which for his size does concern me a little bit, but he has a very high hockey IQ and has great offensive ability. He's able to find offense against the physicality of North American pro hockey, and that makes me think he's going to spend more time in the middle of the checkers lineup this season rather than at the NHL level, but I still think he will be a useful player for them. Last forward I want to talk about is Cole Schwindt. His size and playmaking is a plus, but I think he struggles with the pace of the AHL, or he did struggle with the pace of the AHL in limited time with Syracuse last season, despite getting a lot of time on special teams. His skating does concern me, but when you're a guy that size, skating is always going to be something that is circled as a problem unless you're just stupid fast, which he is not.
Yeah.
All in all, a very deep pool of players that could potentially end up on Charlotte this year. A lot of guys too, where they could make the Kraken out of camp that we may not have talked about. But this is a forward group that I don't expect to have star power, but to be able to roll 4 lines that can score.
Yeah, just like Syracuse, Utica in some instances, but definitely Chicago, I think, was a great example of how a dual NHL affiliation can benefit you greatly. So I think not to spoil anything, but I think, yeah, Charlotte might fall into that category as well. But before we get there, let's talk defensemen. Not the strength of this team, but certainly not the weakness. Now, offensively, I don't have high expectations, but they should be a solid group in their own zone. First off, let's talk about Lucas Carlson. Carlson's an average skater. Offensive toolkit's just okay. Puck skills aren't anything special. Playmaking vision is much the same. He has a good shot, though, but often shoots from a distance when he could make better plays with the puck. He's got a high hockey IQ, aggressive in jumping into the rush, will take chances coming off the blue line to keep possession in the offensive zone. Defensively, he maintains a pretty good gap, but makes some questionable choices in defending odd man rush chances. Next up, Max Gilden was unquestionably the Condors' defensive MVP last season. He's got great offensive vision, good physicality, and plays with grit on defense. As with most players his size, his skating is a concern, especially when it comes to defending rush chances. John Ludwig, good rookie season with Syracuse, especially on the PK. Not the most skilled defenseman. Not a good skater either, unfortunately. He's got NHL shot velocity and gets it on net through traffic. More of a physical grinder who defends in the zone well and makes good outlet passes, but isn't a threat to lead the rush or beat forechecks with his feet. However, he can make up for a lot of his lack of foot speed with anticipation. I'm in a singing mood tonight, apparently. He has a good sense of when to jump into the rush and activate on the blue line. That makes him valuable as a defenseman. Imagine that. Chase Prisky's up next. He only got 15 games last season with the Crunch. It was a limited amount of games he could have played in anyway, but I'm not really sure if that was injury related or not because, again, dual affiliation and coaching choices. It's hard to say. He's got great playmaking vision, can run a power play unit. His skating is merely average. Defensively, he's not great, but should be paired with a more defensive-minded partner so he can focus on what he's good at. Lastly, from the Montreal Canadiens organization, Laval Rocket, Cale Fleury. Jack of everything, master of none. He's got good size, good enough skater, high hockey IQ, who makes plays in transition. Physical, but doesn't take penalties ever. Defends well, but I wouldn't call him a shutdown guy. In the offensive zone, he's really struggled to turn his offense from juniors into sustainable offense as a pro. And yeah, I mean, this defensive core is not the worst in the AHL, but it's not the best either, but I think it's serviceable. And I think, again, like you said about the forwards core, this chemistry of this group put together could be dangerous.
And I think it's too where the only one who really concerns me defending is Chase Prisky. If you have 5 out of 6 defensemen who you can at least trust in your own zone, that's pretty good. And as we move on to goaltenders, that's what goaltenders like to see too.
Sure.
Goaltending-wise, a lot of question marks here. Is there still amount of unknown and inconsistency just woven into the goalies in this room? First up, Christopher Gibson, who got a whole 4 games last year, 2 with Tampa, 2 with Syracuse. His AHL ones went well, and his track record in the AHL is solid, if nothing else, so he should be a dependable AHL starter, if an unsexy one. Joey Decord should probably be in the mix here, but it's hard to say what the Kraken are going to do with him. Not a great season last year from Decord in terms of the stat sheet, but he continues to be an intriguing goalie. He reads the play well, anticipates threats, has good reaction time and solid athleticism, but his positioning is inconsistent. He's not really elite at anything, which is probably why he couldn't crack a very soft goalie room in Ottawa for more than a few games, but I think that there are enough tools there to make him a good AHL goaltender. And last, and in my mind, certainly least, is Samuel Montembeault. Up and down season, which wasn't too shocking for me or anyone who's really followed him. He's been a hard goalie to rely on his whole pro career. Moves well, has good structure in his game, but he struggles to read the play and lacks that elite explosiveness and athleticism, which explains the lack of consistency in his career to date. He was a goaltender last year at times when we'd be talking with Alexander Ackerman about Syracuse and just be like, so which Monty do you think shows up today? And she'd be like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, she couldn't even read the voodoo tea leaves. Imagine that.
He is certainly one that puts the voodoo in goaltending as voodoo.
Now, I know that I put Bebo as an addition ahead of Joey Decord, and I mean, if you were going to have a backup in Seattle, obviously Grubauer is your number one, but who's his number two?
And that's kind of where I feel like, especially too, we listed three guys who are very capable AHL goaltenders, more or less, Montebo being on the left side of that. And Bebo too. I mean, if we can talk about him. Bebo is someone who has struggled with injuries a lot recently. He didn't get into too many games last season, missed the entire season before that, I believe, in Colorado with a pretty nasty hip injury.
He played a couple games for the Eagles, and he actually played one for the Avalanche too.
Ooh.
But
I think he missed most of that season with a hip flexor injury, which are very dangerous injuries and take a lot of time and a lot of stress for goalies to recover because, you know, your hips are important to going down butterfly and moving post to post. Bebo is a goalie who has never had great structure, never been technically very sound, but relies on upper end athleticism to kind of make the saves. And he's someone who cheats a lot in the sense that he'll read the shooter and be like, all right, I'm playing the pass. And if he shoots it, whoops. And he usually has enough reaction time and athleticism to kind of catch up when he gets caught cheating. But if his hip injury is kind of sapping him of some of that, I don't know. It may be time to hang him up for Bebo, or it might take him longer to recover, and he might not just be the wild and fun goaltender he was in the past. So it's difficult to really say. I don't expect to see Bebo here, as I feel like he's going to be at best the third most viable goaltender in this room. And as someone who's a little older and not really a prospect, he's someone I could see just getting a couple of spot starts in Seattle. So he could be here, but we have to cut the number of players we talk about at some point. 3 seemed like plenty for goaltender.
That's fair. And I, of course, completely forgot about Chris Driedger from the Panthers.
Yeah.
He's obviously going to be the number 2 behind Grubauer. So that's my mistake. I was just like, oh, hey, Bebo. Yeah. I mean, he's been injured. I'm like, hey, there's that hope for this guy to kind of give a little resurgence to his career and stay healthy. And so that's kind of why Bebo was on my mind. It's like, all right, you're rooting for this guy because he's been hurt the past couple of seasons. His numbers have suffered because of it. And he's at a crossroads in his career. So that's kind of an intriguing plot line as well. How does Bebo do in this kind of make or break season for him? So anyway, we've covered the players. Let's talk about the outcomes. First off, of course, best case scenario. Somehow, the Charlotte Checkers find consistent goaltending out of that room, and the dual affiliation causes them no serious problems like it did for Syracuse during some stretches last season. If that's the case, this could be a very deep team that may lack top-end scoring punch, but covers it by being able to roll 4 lines that can be dangerous and 6 defenders who can move the puck. Best case scenario is 90 points for a 62.5 points percentage and the Atlantic Division title. Sean, opposite side of the coin. Give me the worst case.
It's kind of hard to find a worst case team on a roster that has this many good AHL players. None of them are going to blow the doors off, but goaltending appears to be a weakness here. And as far as weaknesses go, that's a biggie. Even with below average goaltending, I think the floor here is 80 points for a 56.03 points percentage and a 3rd place finish in the division. Let's talk about most likely. CC, how do we see this one breaking for the Charlotte Checkers this year?
Well, I CC the Charlotte Checkers. See, because CC, Charlotte Checkers, CC. Keeping my day job. Sorry, Sean. He's shaking his head if you're listening. Moving on. Most likely case for Charlotte. This team is good. The model projects the Checkers for an 87.11 points, 87.11 points for a points percentage of 60.49%. That's just under Hershey's and 5th in the AHL overall. I like that total and I'm sticking to it for our most likely scenario. Well, we're back in our groove. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
We are previewing the season, and those are our first 4 teams out of 31. So 4 teams down, 27 to go. And that's it. That is it for episode number 46 of the Calder Farmstead. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. And the Calder Farmstead, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, we are part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. Click it. Brrr, that's the whole list of it. That's the noise it makes. Not really. And you can enjoy a lot of different podcasts. And of course, we appreciate you listening to ours.
And speaking of enjoying things, if you are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 AHL TV team packages. To enter, go to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead, and click on the button for instructions how to enter. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. Cece, where can people find you?
Well, as I've said, my name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Good 3/4 of the content I produce is hockey. Big surprise there. Talk about pro wrestling, talk about music, talk about TV shows, talk about a lot of stuff, but mainly hockey. And if it keeps me interested, my hope is it's not going to be bullshit for you. You can check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Sean, where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SEANOBRIEN81. I'm also on an ever-improving Instagram that's like 75% my dog Parker, who is adorable. That is at Sean O'Brien_81. You can find my stats work, including the point shares model that we've talked about and projected all of these teams for, at bit.ly/datadumpandchase. All lowercase, all one word. CC, take us home.
That'll do it, like I said, for episode number 46 of the Calder Farmstead podcast. Thank you all for tuning into the show. Can't say it enough. Until next time, keep your stick on the ice.